A lot of news today, and James Comey and his new attorneys, and how many people he leaked to, and James Comey, of course, even Jeffrey Toobin of CNN acknowledging he is in legal jeopardy based on his behavior. Our friend Newt Gingrich is with us. By the way, he's got a brand new book out. Remember, he wrote the book about Donald Trump. It became a massive, huge bestseller with incredible insights, and I actually would recommend people go back and read it, because everybody expects that all of a sudden one day Donald Trump's going to wake up and start acting like George Herbert Walker Bush, and it's never going to happen. He is who he is. He ran as a disruptor, as a revolutionary in a sense, as an iconoclast, and he's going to govern like one. That's why things are actually getting done, and the speaker's following it up with a new book called Trump's America, which is, by the way, on Amazon.com. We put it up on Hannity.com. Also, his latest article on Comey and McCabe. Mr. Speaker, welcome back.
Well, it's great to be back. And I must say, I was very surprised. I finally went and did the old-fashioned original research of actually reading the original Rosenstein memo to President Trump about Comey, and then reading the Inspector General's report about about McCabe. And I urge everybody to get the original. In fact, I was just talking with your folks about posting the two original documents on your website, because when you read, Rosenstein closes his memo about Comey to the president and says, as long as he's here, we will never fix the FBI. Now, it is so definitive about Comey's failure that I think it was a tragedy that the president didn't just relax, be calm, and decide that he would, release the document, let the entire country read it, and then, at that point, have a real breakthrough. Because what happened was people focused on the president's action as though he was doing it out of the clear blue. The minute you read Rosenstein's memo, you realize no responsible president had any choice except to fire Comey. So it's truly remarkable to get between...
we forget the small stuff.
What was actually there.
Yesterday, it's funny that you're doing the same thing on parallel paths here, because, after all, I regurgitate every day the seriousness of the abuse of power and how deep this runs, and FISA abuse and rigging an investigation and crimes that were committed and lying to FISA judges and purposely misrepresenting the truth to them, omitting very key information. And then I said, whatever happened to the 33,000 emails? Do we have them? Is there a chance they still exist? Because I doubt there were 33,000 emails about yoga, a wedding, and a funeral, and emails to a husband that doesn't email. And it's interesting because there is a possibility that those emails still exist, but yet nobody has any urgency to find them, which I think would take us a long way into understanding more about all of this. And I think your point is well taken, too, when Rosenstein made the recommendation.
Well, remember that it also is coming out now that apparently the Obama White House at one point in August of 2016 did actively interfere and urge McCabe to not pursue the Clinton investigation. And so my feeling about all of this is all of it keeps coming out, all of it keeps grinding away. We have more and more lawyers who are independent getting engaged, and it's really, really, I think, going to keep growing. I believe both Comey and McCabe now have very serious legal problems involving criminal behavior. In the sense that clearly in McCabe's case, he broke the law, and the Inspector General is definitive about that. And in Comey's case, he publicly said in a testimony to the Congress that he leaked documents to a friend of his at a university for that guy to then give it to the New York Times. That's illegal. I mean, it's not like, oh, gee, that was bad judgment. That is explicitly against the law.
For all those people out there, that think that anybody takes joy, nobody should take joy in the types of things and abuse of power we're talking about. But the level at which it happened is scary, because if we don't fix it, the country's never going to get fixed. And a lot of it, I think, is discovered. Even Jeffrey Toobin, the left-winger that he is, almost always wrong, said that James Comey, when he took those memos that recounted those conversations, and again, we now know some of them had classified information, and he leaked them, he acknowledges that as an illegal leak, and there probably are multiple ones, and it seems like that's why the two attorneys that he has now hired were hired, because it would appear that they may have been the ones leaked to. We know the Columbia one in particular.
Well, and remember, the first thing that a defense lawyer does is he tells you to shut up. Yet here's Comey in the middle of a nationwide book tour, and every time he does an interview, he runs a risk of perjuring himself, further contradicting his stories, or releasing some other crime that we hadn't heard about. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a lot of different things going on here that I think people need to realize that this is, and I think you put it right, when you have the number one and the number two people at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with thousands and thousands of honest, decent agents out there trying to enforce the law, trying to do exactly what the FBI is designed for. But the top two guys clearly were doing things that are genuinely dangerous. If that became the pattern, then we start drifting towards Venezuela or Cuba or one of those countries where...
It's so funny. I've been saying the exact same thing, making the exact same comparison. If in other words, if you can lie to a FISA judge in the weeks leading up to a campaign and purposely mislead them and purposely omit information and never verify or corroborate that which became the bulk of a FISA warrant to spy on an American, a campaign associate of Trump in an election year, and then renew it, subsequent applications 3 times, we've got a problem. And if Hillary, who we know committed multiple crimes, has an investigation fixed with an exoneration before investigation, we're in trouble.
Well, not only that, let's be really clear. Had she won, we would have learned none of this.
Nothing.
I mean, the corruption would have just gotten deeper. It would have gotten deeper. It would have gotten worse. The system would have gotten sicker. I mean, we are very lucky to have dodged the potential for the top people in the Justice Department to all have been involved in conspiracy to violate the law and to undermine the rule of law. And I think that's part of what makes this so important. And the reason that I wrote my column and the reason that I'm so glad you're going to post these documents on your web pages, people don't need to believe me. Read the Inspector General's report, 39 pages. Read Rod Rosenstein's report, which is about 4 pages. And it is devastating.
Devastating.
And so here you got people who are professionals, not Donald Trump, not Newt Gingrich, not Sean Hannity, but the very professionals in the Justice Department saying that Comey was so bad. The closing line by Rosenstein is, Comey is so bad that the FBI will never be fixed as long as he's still there. I would challenge anybody to read that paragraph and tell me, if you were the President of the United States, wouldn't you feel compelled at that point to replace him?
Yeah, of course you had to. And we now know in retrospect. I mean, look at how petty this book of his is. Though the President wasn't as tall as I thought. He's like a mobster. Oh, he's orange, and he has white under his eyes, and his hands weren't as big as my hands. And I'm thinking, this is pretty remarkable for a man that holds himself, a higher loyalty, as he said. And now even CNN lawyers are saying he broke the law. Let me ask you about the upcoming elections. There's been all these predictions of a big blue wave, and we know historically midterms often go against the party in power in the White House. It didn't happen last night with Debbie Lesko, the winner in Arizona. Now, maybe Jim Acosta, who thinks the American voters are too stupid to see through Donald Trump, maybe that's the thinking of some people. Or when Nancy Pelosi and top Democrats we know have been openly talking about impeachment, people like Maxine Waters, and then she's saying when we win the House, we'll promote abortion and open borders, roll back the Trump tax cut. To me, that is the single worst agenda. We just had 8 years of that. Will that be successful for them?
No, I think the blue wave is going to turn into a blue trickle. I think last night was good, but I think there are deeper things going on out there. When you have Steny Hoyer, the number 2 Democrat in the House, saying, we will raise taxes, it reminded me of Walter Mondale. I'm very happy for Democrats to run on an open border, maximum illegal immigration, raise taxes as high as you can, kill jobs and put people back on food stamps. If that's the Democratic Party they want to offer the American people, they're going to have a very long and very hard night. It's going to be exactly like 2016. Remember, at 8 o'clock on election night 2016, every liberal in the country was happy. And by 10 o'clock, the American people had spoken, and every liberal was traumatized. I have a hunch when we get around to the real election this fall, we're going to have a very similar thing. I would also point out, we're going to test these guys. I mean, is the newly elected moderate Democrat senator from Alabama going to vote for Pompeo or not? Mm-hmm. We get all these campaign promises, and then somehow they cave as the liberals beat them up.
Well, or the more ironic thing is watching Claire McCaskill and Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Manchin just for political expediency in an election year. Oh, we'll support Pompeo, and we all know if it was next year after the election and they were still in office, they wouldn't.
That's right. But there's a sign the system works. The American people, they communicate hard enough, folks begin to get the message. And I think also tells us that President Trump has a tremendous amount of latent support in places which have Senate races up this year. And he is having an impact. And I think, frankly, he's also being helped by the visit this week by Macron, the president of France. I think it went over very, very well. It's pretty hard for me to see how anybody who's in any way reasonable could spin it as anything except it was a great visit, very successful. Here's Chancellor Merkel here. Anybody who doubted that Trump could in fact be an effective president in the international order, I think that's all over, and I think
by the way,
I mean, week for him.
The biggest unreported story, well, number one, he had the coalition with France and Great Britain as it results in Syria. Nobody knew that was coming or saw that coming. Then look at China has now capitulated on issues of tariffs, intellectual property rights, and other issues. Everybody was saying just weeks ago that he was going to start a nuclear war with North Korea. And lo and behold, now we have little Rocket Man coming to the table and seriously, we believe, talking about denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Time will tell. Trust and verify. We understand all of that. But then his meetings with the Prime Minister of Japan and then all these leaders in Europe that he has met and from all around the world, it is a possibility of peace with a new dynamic alliance between Israel, the U.S., the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Emirates. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody.
That's right. And I think you have to give him a lot of credit. And then, frankly, when I look at negotiating with North Korea, which I'm glad he's doing, I'd much rather have him talk with Kim Jong-un than have him have any risk of serious war on the peninsula. But think about it for a second. This is now going to be negotiated with John Bolton, Pompeo, and Mattis as the key players with the president.
All amazing people.
I somehow don't think, I somehow don't think it's going to be sloppy or that Kim Jong-un is going to be able to pull the wool over their eyes. These are very seasoned, very
not even close
people. And I get a sense that he wants a deal. I mean, I think he actually does want to somehow break out of the isolation he's in.
By the way, his country desperately needs it. And you know what? In the end, he gives up his nukes. He will have world help. Could be a moment like the wall coming down in a sense that, North and South Korea. Who knows what can happen? We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll have more with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. The documents of which he is referring, the IG report and Rod Rosenstein's letter, are up on Hannity.com. All right, as we continue, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is with us. I was with you in the years when you were Speaker. I was emceeing your event that night. Everybody knows our history. And I thought things were bad when you were Speaker. I've never seen a media so contemptuous of a White House or a president, so rooted in denial and conspiracy as they are now, and deep state actors, not rank and file intelligence, CIA and FBI, but the upper echelon involved in such nefarious corruption and abuse of power in my lifetime. I've never seen anything like it. You lived through some hard times. How do you compare?
Well, I don't think they are comparable for the two different problems, but they reinforce each other. On the one front, you have very senior people in the bureaucracy, and then very senior, who decided that the American people were wrong and they had to protect America for the choice of the American people. And then these folks, the director of national intelligence, Clapper, apparently, and I'm genuinely surprised, I've known Clapper for many years, but he apparently was totally in the tank on this stuff. I knew that Obama's CIA director was in the tank, but he'd always been sort of a left-winger anyway. You then find, of course, as we've been talking about, that the Justice Department had problems, the head of the FBI, the number 2 guy at the FBI, the White House clearly was engaged. All of these things are astonishing at that level. Then you have in the news media a level of hostility, which I am convinced, and you've heard me say this before, I am convinced was in part created because at 8 o'clock on election night, they all knew Hillary was going to win, and they were all about to pop the corpse and celebrate. And at 10 o'clock that night, they had the horrifying reality that not only did she lose, but Donald J. Trump was going to be president. And I think they suffered a psychotic event from which they have never recovered.
And by the way,
really
just to add a little cherry on top, it meant Newton and Hannity were right.
Well, I know. That made it even worse.
That makes it worse.
If they turn to watch Fox at night and just go... But my point is, and I really mean this in a serious...
We only got about 20 seconds.
Way.
Yeah.
Well, the very shock has made it impossible for the elite media to cover Donald Trump honestly.
I hate that you came up with better lines than me. It triggered a collective psychotic meltdown. That's the truest statement ever spoken. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Those articles are up on Hannity.com, and we appreciate it. We look forward to your new book, too. I'm excited about this.